Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Hey everyone, and welcome to All Together, the Family Science Insights podcast, produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Dina Sargeant. Now, let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode. So when we go and try to picture the ideal family, what do we usually find ourselves steering towards? Well, this is apparently a different image for every individual, depending on how they grew up and how they see themselves now. This has been a topic that's lately been on my mind, and what I used to see as a family is very different to what I see as a family now. Last week, we spoke about the changes in who we see as our family. This week, we're talking a little bit more as to why our understanding of family has changed, while also looking at the changes in family dynamics as we ourselves get older. I brought a very good friend and fellow podcaster to have on the conversation on the changes of family dynamics. Please welcome Gabriella Joustra to the show.
It's Gabriella Joustra, sorry.
Joustra, I'm so sorry about that.
That's
I
okay.
keep messing it up. I think I've said that before and I've said it wrong before.
It's okay. I just want anyone listening to know how it's said.
Okay.
So they can know for the future.
Okay, perfect. So how does it feel to be on the other end of this time?
It feels really weird. Because I'm like, I don't have any of my normal things up. That's like, this is what we're going to be doing next.
Yeah.
I haven't thought everything through.
Yes.
It's going to be very off the cuff, I think. But I think it'll be fun.
Yes, I did send you the questions. Hopefully that will help a little bit more.
I did have a think about them.
Yeah.
But I did not take notes.
Okay. Well, we'll go off the cuff. We love that. We've had that last week. We've had that a few weeks before as well. And it's always so much more fun when it's completely whatever you think of. And I love when it's not planned as well. So that's good. So we're talking about family dynamics in this episode. And so how do you feel that you can contribute? Like, how do you feel about the whole idea of changing your family dynamics?
So I think that, are we talking about within the family, or are we talking about more historically, first of all?
I think we'll start off historically.
Okay, so I think that, so hi, I'm Gabriella. I'm not an academic in anything. So everything that I kind of think of is kind of brought from things I've listened to, things I've read. It's not necessarily based in anything academic or any studies. So first of all, I would like to say that I'm not an expert. So this is more my opinion. So what do I think of the changing family dynamics through history? I think that we used to sort of have a more a larger family group, aunties, uncles, grandparents, and then during, I think the 1950s or so, we kind of shifted towards this nuclear family. That is what I grew up with and is what I'm used to, but I don't necessarily think it's the best way. It seems and this is something I've sort of noticed with particularly in today's society, you need two parents' income to run a family, to have enough money to buy a house, to pay bills and send kids to school. But you need more than two full-time parents' time to look after kids. So it's become very hard, I think, to look after kids and also provide for them. And in a sense, I actually was part of that because I was an au pair. So I was looking after these kids because the parents were busy working and they didn't have time to look after their own kids. And I found that a really weird thing because why would you have kids if you couldn't look after them? But at the same time, how can you look after kids if you don't have enough money to provide for them? So I think that is, and I think that's where the historical larger family group where you can have multiple family members looking after kids, but also multiple family members providing for the kids. I think that's something that we've maybe lost in this kind of like nuclear family idea.
Yeah.
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 That's,
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting you having that perspective, especially when coming off the au pair and sort of having that little adventure in life and sort of seeing it in a completely different way.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, like when you talk about children, like people being hired to take care of kids and just seeing that, okay, well, like you said, like, okay, so you have kids, but you can't look after them. It's very interesting. And it's a lot of judgment on a lot of sides, whereas it's like, okay, why you have kids when you can't look after them?
Yeah, I think it's hard because on one hand, I think particularly at that age, I was a little bit more judgmental. So I was very much like, I came to the end of the experience and I was like, why would you have kids if you can't even like spend time with them to look after them?
Yeah.
And I think that's too judgmental because not everyone has the opportunity to spend time with them. Like it is hard. We live in this society, we live in this world, and it's hard to, you know, provide everything that you want for the kids. Not everyone can have like one parent who works and one parent who doesn't work. Or can have two parents who work part-time and afford everything that you need. And for me, that's something that I've thought about if I wanted to have kids. And I've kind of come to the conclusion, amongst other things, I don't want to have kids, kind of for that reason.
Yeah.
But I think that I've lost my train of thought.
No, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, especially when it comes to the like whole idea of like you want two income, you want your kids to have it all.
Yeah.
So which means sacrificing a lot of other things, which means both parents working jobs or both parents working multiple jobs, in fact, like in order to provide for the kids that and give them that life that you want them to succeed in, because it's not cheap in this day and age.
Yeah.
And I think it's gotten a whole lot more expensive to be able to have that whole white picket fence kind of ideology as well. And I think raising kids, even like financially, even emotionally, is really difficult.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a very big task of anyone in this day and age, especially to sort of go through.
And I also don't want to say that like getting help to look after your kids is a bad thing. I think that everyone needs help.
Yeah.
I just think that, and not everyone has family that they can go to for help. My family, I didn't grow up around my family, so we had helpers who looked after me and my brother as well. So I'm not necessarily saying that it's bad. I just find it interesting, I guess, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
No, I definitely find it's a very different dynamic to what everyone else is used to. And I think that's like saying like everything is dependent on how we grew up, and our whole understanding of family is very dependent on how we grew up as well. So I think for me, like I was raised the same way, where it's like my grandparents looked after me when they couldn't, or they flew in from another country in order to look after us for a little bit while we were settling into a new place and my parents were working. So it's a very different dynamic for everyone to have to go through.
Yeah.
So before we dive deep into it, more than we already have, we're going to do a little icebreaker. As you know for sure, we're going to go through different sections of things, and first thing that comes to your mind.
Yep.
We've had a little practice of this as well. So, all right. So the first one is your favorite book.
Okay. So I've previously spoken about my favorite book on a different podcast. So if you want to find it, go find, and I forgot what podcast it is anyway. But I'm going to go with a different book this time.
Okay.
So this is a book I've just, it's a series of books that I just finished reading. It's not my favorite, but I did really enjoy it. So it's The Reckoners by Brandon Sanderson. So it's a series of 3 books. So previously I'd read Brandon Sanderson's books, the Mistborn series. They're very like high fantasy type thing. And I sort of went into The Reckoners thinking it was going to be the same thing. It was actually more post-apocalyptic type book series, which I found really interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to a few other books that I've read, but I'm always happy to, I guess, I don't mind when things have slightly similar themes because they're still very different stories. So in the books, what happens is that this thing has happened, and just random people in the world have like these superpowers.
Okay.
But they're also all like crazy megalomaniacs
Okay.
who just like kill people indiscriminately. And this is basically what happens after. This is basically the world after this. And this one guy who's like finds this group who are trying to take them down. And but I just found like all the characters very I don't know, like not real. I felt them very funny, I guess.
Okay.
They were funny. They were kind of relatable, kind of not relatable. A bit more casual, I felt, than the other Brandon Sanderson books I've read.
Okay.
And I don't know. It was just a fun read, honestly.
Okay.
I love fun reads.
No, it's nice. I love post-apocalyptic kind of settings as well, especially I think, I hate to say it, but after COVID, it really got an interest in me, but in every aspect, whether it's like a movie or a book. It's just so much more interesting now because you're like, that could actually happen at this moment.
I feel like I'm the opposite almost. Like I was really into like post-apocalyptic before.
Okay.
And I don't think I've read many like post-apocalyptic movies after. It just feels, I started watching The Last of Us and it feels almost too real.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, like no thanks.
Oh, I think I watched Love and Monsters. Mm-hmm. And that was like, I think it was on Netflix and it was just so very real. Like this could actually happen. Zombies could actually walk. Monsters could actually kill us. We don't know what could happen in this day and age. And it got so, I think I made a whole playlist for my friend of post-apocalyptic movies to watch. And I included like World War Z and all of that stuff into it. And I did a whole marathon on my own. So yeah, post-apocalyptic is now probably one of my favorite genres that I look for it in every bookstore that I go to now.
I think I'm the opposite. I'm like fantasy. I'm like, I have to escape this world, this post-apocalyptic wasteland that we currently live in. And I need to like find some fantasy world where everything is not necessarily good, but like, I guess just magical.
Yeah. Okay. So back to 2019 kind of era.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, so next up is your favorite movie.
Okay, so I don't really have a favorite movie, but I thought I'd have a brief talk about. So I mean, last night I watched Thor: Love and Thunder, and the day before I watched. I forgot which one it is. Oh, Wakanda. So Wakanda Forever.
Okay.
Forever. And they were enjoyable, but honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting a bit over Marvel movies. Okay. Is that okay to say?
Yeah. I think I'm over this generation's Marvel.
Yeah, I don't know if I think it's getting really complex now. I think that we're just getting lots of extra characters who are based on the same characters, and maybe we just want new characters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I did really like WandaVision though.
Yeah, that was good.
And I think just a slightly different format was really fun.
Yeah, I love that they're doing shows now.
Yeah.
I think that's added a whole different aspect to it, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I guess in some ways the Marvel movies are like one big TV series that has gone on for 10 years.
Yes. It's pretty much our whole childhood.
Yeah.
Has been Marvel. I don't remember a day without it.
I mean, like as my childhood was definitely like the pre-Marvel MCU Marvel.
Yeah.
Like the old X-Men animated series, which I'm also watching right now. All of those types of things. That's what I was really into, but not the MCU type of thing, because that happened just when I finished high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I loved the X-Men. So I could watch those movies 100 times and never be bored of it. So yeah. I love them. All right. So how about your favorite podcast?
Oh, so I listen to so many podcasts. I don't think I could pick one.
Yeah.
One that I've been two that I've been really enjoying recently is two podcasts about My Chemical Romance.
Okay.
So they're called My Chemical Fancast and also Honey This Podcast I think it's just Honey This Podcast.
Okay.
It's based on a song title.
Okay. Yep.
And so My Chemical Fancast basically talks about, so far they've been just going through all the albums and dissecting the songs, 3 songs at a time.
Okay.
And going into how was it recorded? What does it mean? What have they said about it? So something about My Chemical Romance that I really love about them is that they build story into like the actual songs and the albums. So it's not just like, oh, I broke up with my girlfriend or this bad thing happened to me. It's like, it's based on like their real life experiences, but it like moves through in a story, I guess. So you can draw so many things from it in that sense. Yeah. And then, Honey, this podcast is more of a dissection of the cultural impact on queerness.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so a couple of podcasts I've had a real trouble listening to because I just don't understand the theory.
Okay.
But some of their other analyses that I really enjoyed were like their dissection of Gerard's clothing in the new concerts that happened in 2022.
Okay.
And just like how, what it means, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they really dissect going into like what each of the items mean and
more about the overarching theme of what it means. And that was just one episode.
Okay.
So they've got lots of other episodes. And I thought it was just really interesting that this band that I've been listening to for like 15 years now just gives me so much more. Like they just continually, I just keep discovering new stuff.
It's really interesting how there's a whole community that really go ahead and dissect it in a way that, I mean, normal people who, like other people who listen, who don't listen to them wouldn't understand. Yeah. And they've really dived deep into it.
I think that they have a lot there to dissect. Yeah. Because it's not necessarily just about, I guess, the relation, like who they are, but it's about their imaginary worlds and what they want to say. Yeah. And I think that's something that they've always had, which was they had a message to say, and that's what people still go back to them for. But I mean, also I think that I'm into this one specific band, so I know a lot about this one specific band. Yeah, I'm sure that there are people who are really into other musicians and other things that have this same level of like detail and dissection. I just don't know about it. Oh yeah, and that's something I love about just like learning stuff. Is just like there's so much out there. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've found so much is the amount of Harry Styles podcasts there are now.
I don't understand it.
Like there's so many that just dive deep into every outfit that he wears to every award show, everything. And they have a whole episode just based on like one outfit, a whole episode based on the other outfit on the same night. And I'm like, how? Like, it's not that deep.
Yeah. See, I mean, I completely, in one sense, I completely understand what they're doing. And on the other sense, I don't understand at all. Yeah. Because, like, I don't know anything about Harry Styles. So for me, he's just like some random singer who used to be in One Direction. Yeah. Like, how deep can his outfits be? On the other sense, like, I just talked about Gerard's outfits. So Gerard Way, the lead singer. And, like, how, like, the outfits that he was wearing in the last thing they're really meaningful, or at least a few of them are really meaningful. Like the old Revenge outfits that they wore to the When We Were Young concert festival. Okay. Where they dressed up in like their old costumes. Yeah. But like they did prosthetics to make themselves look like really old men.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's like a dissection of what the whole festival meant, because it's like bringing back all these stuff from like the 2000s and like trying to relive that experience. It's the nostalgia, but then them doing the prosthetics and making themselves look old. Yeah. It's just like, it's kind of like a parody of that.
Oh yeah. That's pretty cool. No.
So that's something I've been really interested in.
Yeah, no, that sounds really something worth. Like I love talking about something of interest to you instead of like being whole scientific about something. Yeah. I love doing this and how deep it goes. So next up, how about your famous role model?
Well, so I don't really have like a famous role model, but again, I think I really looked up to My Chemical Romance. Okay. So I think we've really talked about that a lot.
Yes.
So yeah, I think I just think that they have like really lovely stories. Not lovely because most people end up dead. I think they have really interesting stories. Okay. And there's just a lot that goes into everything that they do there that I find really interesting.
No, I love like bands or even artists who sort of go into that deep nostalgia kind of thing and really make a story out of something rather than just singing a love song or singing like something that they know will make them popular. Like they really stick with a story that's going to be like that. So I really love artists who do that.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. So I have to give Chemical Romance a listen and try them out, I think.
I'll send you some songs if you want.
Yeah, send me through. All right, so last question is courses that you've completed.
Okay, so I was trying to think of one that kind of influenced me, and I did do, so I did a course with SIN, was it 94.9? No, that's 91.9. SIN, so it's the Student Youth Network.
Okay.
I can't remember what the number is,
No.
but
Okay.
they, so I did that when I was studying journalism, to like get more of a sense of radio. And here I am. I don't know how to use any of the radio equipment, even though I was trained in that. But even though I only did a very brief time there, I only did one show. I think I learned a lot about how I work, I think, as someone who talks on air. I'm very much, I like listening, and I don't like talking unless I have something to say.
Okay.
Which is funny because I'm talking a lot here.
Yeah.
But I think that just helped me get used to, I guess, talking to people in real life, and also talking to people and hearing myself back. And I think that it's a really great course because it's open for anyone. And after that, you get to go on air and you get to give it a go.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really great course that I did.
No, SIN's really good.
Yeah.
SIN's really cool. It's if you don't know about it, it's a SIN media thing that's based in is it just Melbourne?
So they're based in Melbourne, like they record in Melbourne, but I think they also broadcast Australia wide. Okay.
So yeah, they have the whole course where it teaches you how to be on radio and different ways that you can showcase. So it makes you a little bit more confident to be on radio, and it really is really helpful. So yeah, if you want to give them a go, a little shout out. Yeah. My old lecturer, who's now a friend of mine, she hosts shows on SIN. So she does the Cultural Club.
Okay, I don't listen to them that much.
Yeah.
Occasionally I might tune in, but I actually don't listen to the radio that much. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, I don't listen to radio either.
Yeah.
Radio, it's funny because I studied radio, but it's not something that I really have an interest in.
Yeah, I did an internship and I just kind of put me out of radio.
Yeah.
I just didn't like it that much.
Yeah. It's fun, but it's not as fun as podcasting.
Yeah, podcasting is, I don't know, it's just, you get more time.
Yeah.
I think it's not as stressful.
Yeah, it's so much easier. I mean, it's not this easy, but
yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot more fun for me to do. All right, so now we're going to get started into the nitty-gritty of the questions. So the first question is, what do you think is your definition of family?
So I don't think I have I guess the first thing that would come to mind is like that nuclear family, the mum, the dad, the two kids. But I don't think that family actually is that. I think that family is, an extended thing of people who related to you, but it can also be like anyone around you who is, I guess, in some ways closer than a friend. Something that as a kid, we didn't have extended family around us, but we adopted grandmas.
Okay.
Multiple grandmas.
Okay. Okay.
Who would like come to all of our Christmas things. A couple times they stayed with us just because like stuff had happened to their own houses. So I would still consider them family, and the same with like my friends as a teenager. Like, my friends would call my parents mom and dad. I would call their parents mom and dad. So I think family is more than just the people who you're blood related to. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that today's definition, it's no longer the same as what it used to be, say, a few decades ago?
Yeah, I think that, as I mentioned before, I think that family has, at least in the Western culture, has shifted a few times. So, and I think it's different in different cultures as well, like what family is.
Yeah.
But from my own perspective, growing up, family was, two parents and two kids, or two parents and kids in this nuclear family type of situation. And then you've also got the extended family, aunts, uncles, grandparents.
Yeah.
Who are, I guess, in a sense, a step away from the nuclear family.
Okay.
But then I think, so that's kind of what I grew up with. But I think, as I said, I don't necessarily think that is how how it is now. I think that we have a slightly more broader definition, or at least I hope that's what's happening. Not being particularly interested in creating and my own family in the sense of having kids. Exploring that definition hasn't been something that has really been something I've been doing. But I think so. Yeah. So that's my thought there.
Okay. All right. So what do you think the position of a family holds in today's society?
So, I mean, I think that, so kids are this blank slate. You start off with, and the family is really where they learn about things. I mean, you learn about things in school and everything, but it's really where your parents are involved. That is how you learn to navigate society, basically. So, in the sense that, so your family, your foundation is how you interact with, is the base from which you interact with society.
Okay.
So if your parents are terrible people and make you into a terrible person, then you're going to go out into society and be terrible.
Yeah.
That's a very simplistic way of saying it. But the ideas that your parents give to you and they send you out into the world, and you either have to change how you think or you stick with what they've taught you. And you have to make that decision yourself if you want to change. But the way that your parents raise you is always going to influence you. I think going into the future as well. I don't know, for an example, my parents had I don't think they were really bad, but they did have a not great idea on fatness and exercise, and that's kind of affected how I've gone about my life.
Okay.
Because I am a bit scared of, I never liked exercising because my parents always saw it as a shameful thing.
Exercising was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I've gotten into running, and I've discovered I really like running because it makes me better at catching the train.
Yeah. I love that that's the reason.
That's honestly, I being able to be oh man, the train's in 2 minutes. I have to get there, and running for the train and getting on the train and not feeling like I'm about to pass out.
Yeah.
Is the best feeling.
It's a motivation.
But getting to the point where I felt shame when I first started running. I felt like I just couldn't do it in front of people.
Okay, so the embarrassment sort of
just embarrassment.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that the way that my parents have raised me there has affected my own self-image and my own image of other people. Something I'm still working on. I don't necessarily think that I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
I still have lots of issues.
Yeah.
But that's something that I've had to learn and grow from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think knowing that as well is another thing. It's the thing that you've taught yourself to acknowledge the fact that you know this. And this is the difference between what you believe and what you grew up believing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part.
So yeah, that's how my parents have affected how I, relate to society. So but then they've done it with so many other things in my life.
Yeah.
Okay. So many other ways, and everyone as well. So yeah, that's how, the family is, I guess, related to society and how it affects society.
So it's kind of the first view of what you understand the world to be.
Exactly.
So if someone said that, if you walk alone in the street, if your parents, for example, told you walk alone in the street at night, you can't because it's dangerous. You could get killed. You would definitely be terrified of walking the street alone at night.
Yeah. Can I tell a funny story?
Yes, go ahead.
So when I first started dating my partner, he was like, do you want to go for a walk? And I was like, it's 9:00. You don't go outside at 9:00.
Okay.
And he was like, what? And I was like, but it's dangerous. And it was just, I don't know if this was because he's a man and I'm a woman, and, men and women and girls and boys are raised differently, in the sense that women are told to be a lot more careful going out, particularly at night.
Yep.
Or if it was just his family were a lot more carefree.
Okay.
Maybe he grew up in a much safer place than I did. I don't know.
Yep.
But I was just completely blown away by the idea of going outside at night.
Yeah. No, I think I grew up with the same thing as well. My parents always said when it gets to start getting sundown, you have to be home. Yeah. And now they're just it's very different now because I still live with them and they don't care if I'm home at 1:00 in the morning now. And I'm like, shouldn't you care?
Well, it's a bit different, I think. as when you grow up, because like they tell you those things as a kid because you don't know what the warning signs are.
Yeah.
And they want to protect you. And also, no, that's a cynical view. I had a cynical view. But now, you know, you can make your own choices. If you make a stupid choice, that's your own fault.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, you can, even doing unsafe things in quotes, like going outside at night.
Yeah.
You can still make smart choices.
Yeah.
You can walk down well lit areas rather than taking the shortcut by the dark lake.
Exactly. I mean, you avoid a lake at all costs.
Yeah.
I think every movie has taught you that anyway.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the differences between like being a kid and being a grown-up amongst your parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next part is, so we grow up hearing about the way a family should be. What are some of the bigger influences to that ideology of sort of the perfect family or ideal family?
So, I mean, the way that I think I was taught growing up that the family was supposed to be, or the way that I saw it depicted, was a mum and a dad and then 2 kids. And the mum would do the dishes and be the caring one, and the dad would go out and work hard and make money. And I think that that's a very, it's not traditional, because I don't think going too far back it's that traditional.
Yeah.
But it's sort of what we were taught growing up. And my family were kind of like that, but kind of not like that. I think that there is no perfect family.
Yeah.
I think that if a family did look like that, is not a perfect family.
No. There are secrets there.
Yeah, there are issues there.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of resentment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that is sort of the historical idea of the perfect family, which I think is incorrect. I think that maybe the perfect family for me is a family where at least the parents involved or the adults involved have a partnership where they both work to their own skill set. But it's a partnership.
Yeah.
It's not a hierarchy.
Yes.
You both make decisions. You both have equal say. And you don't necessarily stick to like the feminine role and the masculine role, just because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of today's society, whereas like there's no real set masculine and feminine role as much as there used to be. Like I grew up with my mum staying home, my dad working. My mum knew that, okay, dad was going to be home a certain time and dinner had to be ready. And we grew up like that. Like I came home from school, we did our homework and had dinner, went to bed. Like that was pretty much the general ideology. And that's how a lot of my friends also grew up as well. And I think because the community I grew up in was a religious community. So we all had like our very feminine and masculine roles set, exactly what the wife was supposed to do, exactly what the husband was supposed to do. And everyone did that.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't until I started getting older that I started seeing, okay, there are divorced families that exist. There are people that relationships that don't work out. And I'd never actually met a child whose parents were divorced. So I never knew that was how would they function? Because like usually you function with like 2 complete sets of parents being there, not like 2 different houses.
Yeah.
But then like as you get older, you see so many more different, like I went to high school and I think it was a completely different view again.
Yeah.
Because I was like, majority of kids at that time had their parents divorced.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was a thing, that was something that did exist. I was like, these kids, how are they like functioning? How are the families functioning? But how like a lot of them were going through life exactly the same way I was. So I think I grew up very reserved in a way of not knowing the different ways families existed. And I think it was similar to you, or was it very different?
I'm trying to think. So my dad is a priest, but we weren't actually particularly religious. So it's not the same sort of like religious designation. So my dad, my mum was always the one who actually made the money. So she was the worker in the family.
Okay.
So I don't remember this very particularly clearly, but I don't remember my mum being around a lot as kids when we were quite young. It was more my dad. And then also when we moved, we got helpers in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And then so we also spent a lot of time with them. So my dad was always the one who was doing stuff like, he did a lot of the more feminine tasks in a sense because he was the one cooking. He was the one who looked after us a bit more. I think then as we got a bit older and my mum she got a slightly less demanding job. Then she did it like the more cleaning stuff. In that sense, people often would actually say to me, you know, you're so lucky to have a dad who knows how to do all these things like, you know, make jewelry and make clothes.
Yeah.
And is interested in that kind of stuff. And I was just like, well, that's just how it is. That's all I know.
Yeah. Okay.
But in another sense, it was quite traditional because even though my mum was the one who made all the money, my dad was still the head of the house.
Okay.
He was still the one who made. I'm not saying that they weren't a partnership, but so my parents have now divorced. So, and they did that when I was an adult. So I learned a lot about my parents in that time because my parents would come to me and talk to me about their relationships.
Yeah.
So something that I discovered was that even though my parents, particularly my dad, thought that they were a partnership, my mum always felt a bit more like she had less control over what was happening. It was more my dad, I guess, he wasn't trying to be controlling, but I think he was a more forceful personality.
Okay.
And so for my mum, leaving this relationship, she got to actually explore some of who she was and, you know, got to decorate the house how she wants and gets to make some of her own decisions. And I think that's just part of being in a family as well.
Yeah.
Is I think all of us, all four of us, there's four of us in the family.
Yeah.
All were a bit different. None of us were exactly how we wanted everything to be. And growing apart slightly means that we get to like control our own lives and do what we want.
Yep.
But yeah, so I can't remember the beginning of the question.
No, I think it was the ideal family.
Yeah.
So what a family should look like compared to what it does.
That's what my family was like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's hard.
It's very interesting because like the whole, I think for me, it was my dad. Like, my dad still went shopping with us. Like he did do a lot of stuff with us. But it was always my mum who had the control. And it was very much, even though my mum didn't work, she stayed home. She had the complete control. Like my dad I think my dad saw it as a partnership. But I think the way that my sister and I both saw it is that there was a hierarchy and you knew who was, like, I think there's a movie called My Big Fat Greek Wedding where they had like the man is the head of the house, but the woman is the neck. And she can change the head any way she wants. And that's pretty much how the dynamic of my family was. Like dad had a say, but mum had the final say. So you wanted anything, you asked dad, butter it up a bit, and then you asked mum. And there was nothing that you could get past her because he would tell her everything. So then you'd never know what she knew. So yeah, it grew up very, like, I don't think we were restricted in a lot of ways. I think we were given the sense of an ideal family. And that's all we knew.
Yeah.
We knew that, okay, mum ruled this. She had all the power. But I think my whole idea of like what the ideal family came to be, it definitely changed when I hit high school. And I saw so many of my friends getting married really young.
Oof.
And then that was the big part where I was like, okay, so they get married straight out of high school. I don't want to do that, but that's apparently what everyone around me is doing. So that's where I thought, okay, this is what ideal family. This is when a family should start.
Ooh.
Which was not like, I mean, thinking about it now, definitely not when a family should start. I mean, everyone has their own opinion, but definitely, I was definitely not ready to be married at 18.
Yeah, no.
I'm not ready to be married now.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing. So I think like when we're talking about everyone has their different path, like you said, I think we said behind the scenes, like before the recording, that you were a lot more mature for your age than you were, than the age that you were. And I think we started speaking about how adulthood, everyone says adulthood starts at 18.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't.
Yeah. I never had a boyfriend growing up, like as a teenager. And I had a very, I think, idealized version of what I wanted to happen, I guess. I never wanted to have like the on and off relationships. I never wanted a short-term relationship. I just wanted to be straight into a long-term relationship, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I wanted to be married immediately. Actually, I didn't want to be married immediately. But I didn't want to be wasting my time with someone who I wasn't wanting to be with, basically. So I think that in some ways that is quite mature. I didn't want to just like not shack up. I didn't want to like just date anyone just cause.
Yeah.
So that is, I guess in a way mature. I don't know.
I think so. I think it's a lot more mature in a sense that you know what you want at that age.
And I just, and I think that going into my relationships, I had an ideal version of what I wanted, which was someone who I trusted, who I loved, who I want to be with forever.
Yep.
And I mean, there are a lot of more things in that as well, but that was what I was aiming for, and I wasn't going to settle for anything else.
Yep.
And I guess that's part of my family, is that I didn't want, because this person, even if we don't marry, even if we don't have kids, you're still a family, your long-term partner.
Yeah.
And so I did have ideals. And for me, those ideals were someone who was, I guess, not sexist.
Yep. Okay.
Who, you know, we share lots of things. We have open communications about what we want, what we don't want. We share responsibilities like cleaning, washing. I absolutely abhorred the idea. Is that the correct word?
Abhorred? Yeah.
Yeah. The idea of being the person who has to clean everything, to look after everything, I don't necessarily need to be with someone who can do everything. I just need someone who at least puts in like effort into that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So that, for me, that's my ideal family, is two adults where you share everything, you trust everything, you have responsibilities that you both agree to.
Yeah.
You're not one person controlling another person, or one person taking all of the burden.
Yeah. Or one person doing the work, one person doing the work at home.
Yeah.
Like, I would hate to be in that kind of.
So, I mean, as a younger person, not necessarily as a child, but I definitely had a thing against the working, like the person working from home, like the homemaker.
Yeah.
Particularly as a woman, the homemaker, I was really against it. I realized growing up that it's not the being the homemaker, it's the not having the choice to do it, or the choice not to do it.
Yep.
People should, if they want to, they should be able to be mothers.
Yeah.
They should be able to be a homemaker, look after their home, look after their kids. I just don't think that it should be just the women. I don't think it should be something that's expected of every woman.
Yeah.
I think that if you should do every single part of it. I think that if you want to do 50% of the mothering, that's fine. If you are a man and you want to be the main parental figure who looks after the home, that's fine. That's great.
Yeah.
It's just about having the choice and not doing it just because it's expected of you.
Yeah. And I think that's a really big thing as well. Like, a lot of it is when you grow up, you see this is what you expect. Like, society expects this and this. And I think in a way they still do. I mean, we're still I think there are still a lot of men who are still trying to convince society that them not working is not them just being lazy and slacking off. It's meaning they want to spend time with their kids.
Exactly.
And I think we definitely, we do give men a hard time in terms of them. We call them lazy for not wanting to work and to be around. And I think I've seen a lot of articles where there are just women being like, oh, this men are just lazy. They just don't want to work when the woman's working. I'm like, if it's their choice to do it, she chooses to work, he chooses to stay home, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, as long as they know that they're doing this for the kids. Like, honestly, I think I was lucky in a way to have one parental figure full-time there with me growing up.
Yeah.
And I think it was really nice to be able to have that. I do, like, a lot of my friends, they had two of their parents working, and it was very different. Like, they barely spent time with them. They barely saw them, for example. Like, a lot of them were relying on the oldest child to look after them, to look after the younger kids or look after the other kids. And I was glad that I had my mom home. I think for the time that I was really young and did need her.
Yeah. I do think both my parents basically worked full time as a kid. So, I kind of sometimes wanted like one parent who would like, pick you up after school and make you sandwiches, which my parents did sometimes, but like maybe not as much as other people. Like I feel like my parents weren't as involved in my childhood as some other people. Not to say that's good or bad. It's just how I felt it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like if you can, it is really great to have one parent who can stay at home and look after the kids. Because I think, or both, I just think that having the time, again, why would you have kids if you can't spend time with them? Yeah. That's something that I feel something I feel is like, if you're going to have kids, spend time with them.
Yeah. Like, I think everyone has, I think this falls into a lot of the love language thing. Like a lot of parents, they feel gift giving is their thing, which means you work hard to compensate for the fact that you're not there. And I think it becomes a cycle as well. Like a lot of kids just want their parents there. Yeah. But the parents are thinking, I work hard, I can buy my kid this.
Yeah.
And so it's finding that balance where it's like you spend time with them while also buying stuff for them. And I think that's really hard in this society. Yeah. I mean, I was just looking at articles the other day and there are people that the rent's going up like twice as much as it was a couple of years ago. And it's insane, the amount of things that are on parents' shoulders today. Whereas you could buy like a full house like 2 decades ago for half of that price. Yeah. So there's a lot riding on, and I think it does damage the relationship with kids and parents. Yeah. For sure, because like you're not able, like you said, I think you said earlier at the beginning that the parent is the child's first look into how the world is. And if that's how they perceive the world, that's how they'll see it, pretty much influence them forever. Yeah. So there's that there's a lot that can happen in the child. Like it's a first impression of everything. And first impressions, like they say, are always the most imperative for how everything goes in the future. So yeah. Yeah.
Raising a bunch of materialistic children.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so the next question is, what causes change in a family structure?
So I'm going to take this to a more personal family level. I'm going to say time. Okay. Because, so this is more like as you age, right? So like when you're a kid, you really need your parents. You need them to provide for you. You need them to set the rules so that, you don't get caught in traffic, to take care of you, basically. So it's a very different relationship too. As you get older, you need more the kids need to be given responsibilities, so that they can learn to be adults on their own. And so that's how I found was, I think my parents did it quite well. Like, as we got older, we had more responsibilities. We pushed against them sometimes. But then as adults, I think there was a point where I was like, I'm going out now. And they're like, okay, bye. And I'm like, oh, you're not going to ask where I'm going? Yeah. You're not going to say anything? Like, I found it really weird, I think, pushing against the boundaries and finding that they weren't there anymore.
Okay.
And it took me a while to figure out how to be an adult with no, like, whose parents are there, but not necessarily providing rules.
Okay.
If that makes sense?
Yeah, no, that does. And I think it hits very much now with me. Like,
Yeah.
I think lately I've been seeing that. I think the last couple of years, they just don't care. Like,
No, it's not that they don't care.
Yeah.
It's that you're an adult now who can make your own stupid decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, if it hits so different when they're just like you said, like, they don't ask where you're going.
Yeah.
As like, it's like the minute that you become a certain age, but it comes slowly.
Yeah.
And it's like, first they sort of stop asking you where you're going, then they ask what time you're coming home.
Yeah.
And then they just ask, oh, have a good time. And then you're like, where did that come from? Because usually you expect me to know exactly who you're going out with, where you're going, what time you're coming home. Are you able, do you want me to pick you up? Like, that kind of thing. And I think when you get older, that changes. Like, even though I'm living at home, I still hardly ever see any of my family.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're all pretty much, and I've had this conversation with them before, I think we're all pretty much roommates at this point. Like, we're all at a certain age where we're just there, but we're just paying our half of the rent.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
So I've had this for a while. So my parents, they divorced. So for a while I was living with my dad, but my mom also had a room for me. So I used to go stay over there as well. And I found it really weird, the differences between how my mom treated me and my dad treated me.
Okay.
So my dad was very much a roommate mentality.
Yeah.
We were just like doing our own things. You know, if we were both in the house, we'd have lunch together. You know, I'd text him and be like, what are we doing for dinner? And we would make stuff together.
Yep.
Or one of us would make food and the other person would eat it. But if we weren't there, fine.
Yeah.
Whereas my mom was very much more still a mum, still a parent.
Okay.
So, you know, she would be like, oh, can you come over today to do stuff with me? And then, you know, she's like, oh, what do you want for dinner? I'll make you dinner. You know, she wanted to do family dinners. For a while, she tried to do every Sunday. My brother and I would go over to her house and have dinner. And it got too much.
Okay. Every Sunday.
This is too much.
Yeah.
We have our own lives, unfortunately. And so I think she has sort of stepped back a little bit and realized that we're actually adults. But for a while it was really weird because my dad was just like, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
He has his own life as well.
He's got his own life. Whereas my mom was still very much stuck in that family mentality.
Okay.
And not family, but like parenting mentality. And it did kind of mean that I was like 22, 23. I didn't want to be parented.
Yep.
So it meant that I wanted to spend more time at my dad's house because at least then I could do my own thing. And I didn't feel like I had to do everything my mom wanted me to do.
Okay.
Whereas now it's a lot better, I think. I think she had to realize that my brother and I were adults who were going to move out of home.
Yep.
And weren't going to be there every second of the day.
Yep.
And so it's gotten a lot better, I think. We're one of those families that we see each other maybe once a month.
Okay.
We're not great at communicating, but I think we've realized that that's just how we all are, and it's fine. And we actually will be there when we need each other.
Yep.
Like, I will just call my dad and say 10 o'clock at night and say, my fridge is broken. Can I bring my stuff over to your house? Or, Mum, we've got no electricity. Can I move my cat over to your house for several days? Like, we'll always be there. Like, and my mum, we've done the same thing with, you know, my mum said she hurt her hip and I came over that day to help her. But it's much more of we'll always be there if we need each other, but we won't necessarily be in contact with each other every single day.
Yeah, it's not like I'll have to check in.
Yeah, you're not worried about them.
Yeah.
Because they're adults who can look after themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like that's a big thing for me because I'm only slowly learning.
But it took a while. It took several years, I would say.
Yeah.
Because it's new for both of you like for both you and your parents.
Yes.
And you have to, it's hard to, you know, leave those things. And sometimes it can be comforting to like with my dad, like at first I would be like, what are we doing for dinner? Like, we're not home yet. And he's like, oh, I'm out for dinner. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I'm a child. Please make me dinner. But I'm like 22.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just got used to like making my own dinner and just like, you know, we just text each other to be like, what's happening for dinner?
Yeah.
So that we know what's happening.
Yeah.
And you just get used to it. So, and it was actually good because then I got to learn how to cook what I wanted to eat rather than what he wanted to eat.
Oh, yeah.
There are definitely good things and bad things about both sides. One is like, I love having someone cook for me because it's so annoying to cook for yourself.
Yes.
But on the other hand, being able to pick what I want to eat and not what my dad wants to eat was really nice.
Yeah. I think over the last year, I've started cooking for myself now. And I have done such a good job. I haven't burnt the kitchen down.
Yay.
I'm actually, because I didn't like growing up, it was always mum's cooking. This is what she's cooking.
Yeah.
And like you said, like I get to decide what I'm making. So if I'm feeling like something, I can just pop down to the grocery store, buy it for one person.
Yeah.
Make it for myself. I'm learning to clean up after myself before I sit down and eat, because after I eat, I'm so lazy to tidy things up. So I'm like learning that whole new stage of, okay, yes, I'm still the child in the house, but I'm not the child in the house. And I think like they're slowly learning that we're not the kids in the house. There are still rules set. And I think like my family's weird at the moment because we're early in that stage of everyone. Okay, the child is the child and the parent. Yeah. But they're not like we're still learning to treat each other all like adults.
It's also a little bit difficult, I think, to fully remove yourself from the child-parent relationship when you're still living together.
Yes.
Like even when I go back to my parents' houses now and stay there for a few days, I still still part of me doesn't clean my dishes immediately. I'll be like, I'll just leave it there. Yeah, it's fine. Like it's just, and I think that's something that'll always happen is you'll go to your parents' house and you'll immediately revert in some ways back to your childhood self.
Yeah.
And that's just something that'll happen. And I think you can't I think in some ways it's really difficult to embrace the full adult, the no longer parent-child relationship until you move out.
Yes. This day and age doesn't sound like I'm moving out anytime soon. Yeah. But I think possibly like maybe in the future, in the next few years or so. Yeah. After I've done traveling the world a bit, I'll
travel
come back.
first. Like save up money, travel first.
Yes.
And I didn't move out until I was like 26, 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple years.
Yeah.
Got a couple of years of being young, dumb, and broke.
Take the time to like enjoy yourself now. Like buy stupid shit you don't need.
Yeah. I'm so close to buying a washing machine that's for your beauty blender just because I saw it on TikTok.
Don't do that.
I know. I was so close. I saw it there and I'm like, no, let's not do that. I do need money at the moment. Yeah. All right. So we talked about this a little earlier, but what's the whole usual impact of film culture and how does it affect sort of what we see in the whole family dynamic now?
I don't know if this is something that maybe is changing now because we get to see different types of families, but I mean, I think that we do take cues in some ways from what we watch and what we see around us. So if you get to see a family that's a bit different from you, I think that you know, sort of shows you a different way of being. I don't really have any examples of this that I can think of.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of films where it shows so many different ways. Like, I think I always revert back to August Osage County, I think with Julia Roberts and Meryl Streep in it. It's really good, but it's very intense.
Okay.
Like it shows it's about like the family house and their father died. And they go back, all the kids, they all have different lives and they go back to the family house to be with the mom who's left by herself. And the mom, they grew up in a childhood where there was a lot of emotional and physical abuse. but they still took care of their mom because their mom is getting older. So now but the mom doesn't remember a lot of the stuff. Also has a lot of, she's also a drug addict as well. So they all have different lives, but when they come back, they're all suddenly being the parent to them. And they all realize that they all had different childhoods. They all had different feelings towards how the mum was. Like the youngest child barely remembered what was going on, but the oldest child knew everything and knew exactly what to expect. And it's so interesting because I always revert back to that whenever I think of how family dynamics is as you get older. And I think that was a really bad first impression to how family dynamics go, because it definitely influenced, like, okay, so what do you do? And I think I've always wondered this, like, what do you do when you're an adult and you're looking after a parent? Like, you have your own life, but the minute you go back to your family, like you said, you revert back to your childhood ways, the way that you knew. And I think it's such a great, like, film definitely has an impact on how you view family as well. Just because you're seeing it and you're like, okay, so this is how it's going to be when you get older. Like, you're going to have to go back to being a kid and go back to looking after, or are you going to somehow live your life while still knowing that your parents are there? So it's like, it's very interesting to me to see how different films sort of adapt the whole idea of growing up.
So a slightly different film that I thought of.
Yep.
So I think it's a Pixar animation. I think it's called Bao.
I saw that. Yeah, okay. It's a little dumpling one, right?
It's a little dumpling one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and my brother and I both watched that, and we both, like, I think we almost cried.
Okay.
And they were like, we have to call my mom. Like, we both watched, I guess, how she's very protective of this dumpling. Yeah. Even as he gets older. Yeah. And so I think that sort of reminded us of our mum. I mean, I think it was also a cultural representation thing. Like, we don't see many, I guess, Chinese mums, at least when we were growing up, acting like she did, where she's, like, very protective and almost doesn't let them grow up. And then eventually you have to accept that they have grown up. But then you want to go back sometimes and, you know, be together. So I think that was one that really, both my brother and I both said that.
It's like, you call her straight away.
Hey, Mom, can we come for dinner? You have dumplings?
I'll get some, it's okay.
And she would 100% do that. Yeah.
So I think it's like, for that dynamic, like that's a huge thing to sort of see how much you look back at your childhood. Like, I think I remember watching Inside Out and seeing how the girl grew up with all these different things in her head, all these different emotions, and then how her parents sort of dealt with it as well. And I always thought it was so interesting because the parents had their own little things in their head talking, and they all had different ways of dealing with situations. And this child is here trying to figure out how the heck she deals with her situations, not knowing that there's different things that she could feel through it. And I think those are the two movies that I always seem to somehow relate to. And I think I cried multiple times watching Inside Out, just especially like when she's running away from home and all. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it though, like at this point, go see it. Like, it's such a, I think Disney does it really well when it has the whole family dynamic. They really show, like, even Lion King, they showed like the mentorship and things that parents are meant to have with their kid. And so it definitely has, for me, it has a huge impact on how you see family and sort of an, I think, ideal family and what your description of family would be. All right. So the next question, I think we spoke about this, but the whole white picket fence kind of ideal that, like, you see in, I'm going to go to a movie again, but you see in a lot of movies how they have the whole ideal family. I think What was that movie? How they turned, like, they were black and white and they slowly started to have color in them. Do you remember the whole like thing was black and white? I forgot the name of it now.
I mean, two things come to mind, but I don't think they're it because it's The Wizard of Oz and WandaVision.
No, definitely not that. Earlier than that.
No.
It's the guy like Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. He was in it, and I think I'm going to get roasted so hard in these comments because people are going to say what the name is. But yeah, it's like that whole idea of, okay, the white picket fence, that perfect life of like the husband coming home, and like the 1950s kind of era where everyone's wearing dresses, everyone's like constantly like there's that whole sort of societal expectation set. I forgot.
Edward Scissorhands?
No.
Okay.
I'll remember it at the worst time possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, so why do you think that used to be the whole main sort of view of family?
I mean, propaganda?
Okay.
Like, I think that it was very easy for, I think that there was a strong move for that kind of life. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe consumerism, trying to, I guess, push everyone to buy stuff was very much where that comes from. I only have half an idea for this.
Okay.
So I don't know if I can elaborate much more on that. I think that, I think that there was definitely something about that era and that time that it was after the war. I think we wanted lots of babies, recovery and everything. And then the birth of like advertising, and, buying the perfect house and the perfect car and the perfect makeup for your 1.2 family. Yeah. 2.7, 2.5, I don't know. And I think, and building a country, I guess, based on that as well. Yeah. But I don't have much more thoughts than that. So yeah.
Okay. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Selling advertising is a big part, for sure. Okay, so now we're heading into the open mic section. And it gives you a chance to talk about anything that you are interested in. I think we've got a couple minutes left.
Yeah.
So
I'll be quick.
Yes. Head on to anything that you want to talk about.
Okay, so I thought I'd just do a little promo for my podcast. Just in case anyone's interested in listening to me talk a bit more. But I promise I let the guests talk most, so it's okay. So the podcasts are Room by Room, which is about home organization. And we've also got On the House, which is about home management. And they sound very similar. So what is the difference between them? So the way I think about it is home management or household management is how the household runs. So stuff like cleaning, maintenance, lots of different things. Gardening, composting, cooking, meal planning, even finances, all of those things, home insurance, they're all part of the household management sphere. Whereas home organization is more of like the actual built environment of the home. So stuff like how the bathroom is designed, how the kitchen is designed, and also like how to keep it clean. Like decluttered. So I've got a lot of episodes about decluttering and organization. So like how to keep your house nice and organized so you're not tripping over things and why that's important. Yep.
I have actually used that episode while I was organizing my room.
Good.
And like storage boxes and everything. And I found that I needed to listen to that. So definitely go and check that out.
I'm really glad I got to pick these two topics because like I find them the most useful.
Yeah.
Like we also had to do these vlog challenges recently. So one of them was I had to make my bed every day. And you know what? I'm still doing it.
Yay!
And it actually, I don't know, I like having the bed nice and tidy. I never did that before. I was like, what's the point? But now I feel like maybe this is not necessarily a good thing, but I feel more invited to lie on it halfway through the day because it's nicely made.
Okay.
Whereas if it was all rumpled, I'd be like, ugh.
Yeah.
I don't know how to lie on this thing.
It's like, where's the room? Where's the space for it? Yeah.
So in some ways it means that I can use that room for not sleeping activities, which I think was the opposite idea of what I was supposed to be doing. But I don't know. I found that really enjoyable. And even stuff like recently I did an interview about plants. So now I'm looking at my plants and I'm like, okay, how can I improve you to make you better?
Yep.
So yeah, I think I really enjoy my podcasts. So you should listen to them.
Yeah, I don't think I have any better person to be able to do those two shows apart from Gabriella. Honestly, like listening to how she asks the questions is amazing. So if you guys haven't checked it out, I'll have the links down below and you guys can go give that a little and tell them that I sent you. Just like comment down below and say that I've sent you down to listen, because honestly, like the way that she delivers everything is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Gabriella, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for sort of talking about family dynamics and opening up about like your personal life as well a little bit more. And it's nice to sort of get to know. I like these when I bring on like the other hosts, because I get to know you guys a little bit more as well. And I think a lot of the audience gets to listen to more about you. And I think it's very interesting. Like the whole idea of family is just very interesting to me. So like I love my two areas. If you haven't seen it, I've got family and parenting, and I'll have them linked down below as well. Just a little plug for my own little shows.
Go listen.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. And if you have any comments or if you want to know anything else, just comment down below. Or on YouTube, you can definitely comment. I don't know about the other ways, but head down to YouTube and just comment down below anything you want to ask either Gabriella or myself, and we'll hopefully get back to you. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. You've been listening to Altogether, the Family Science Insights podcast, produced by Family Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting apps available on your smartphone. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe to our channel so that other people can find it and we can continue to provide quality content. More of our work can be found on our website at fa.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Dina Sargeant, and thanks for tuning in.